No one saw the snap coming at the end of Avengers Infinity War.
What'd you do?
Although many expected Thanos to be a greater challenge than anything the heroes of the Marvel Cinematic Universe have ever faced. With a palpable sense of dread in the theater, every one of the movie's millions of attendees was shocked when Thanos snapped his fingers and erased half of all sentient life in the universe. This, of course, also includes the majority of the heroes countless people have come to love over the past decade of Marvel movies gracing the silver screen. This leaves only the original Avengers, Ant-Man, War Machine, Nebula, Rocket Raccoon, and Captain Marvel left to battle Thanos in the upcoming Avengers Endgame. Not only will these remaining heroes have to find a way to track down the Mad Titan, they'll have to defeat him with only a fraction of their full fighting force. Then they'll have to find a way to revive all of the friends and loved ones lost in the snap. If this seems like an impossibly tall order, that's because it is. All of the heroes that died in Avengers Infinity War are permanently lost and will not come back to life at the end of the next Avengers movie. None of the remaining heroes have the ability to undo the snap and will not be able to revive the other deceased heroes. Although, there might be another means for some semblance of normality to return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just reversing the snap would be a bit of a cop-out and undercut a lot of the thematic tension built up so far. Here's why the fallen heroes in the MCU are dead forever. Avengers Endgame is probably going to have a more conventional structure than Infinity War. The previous superhero crossover flick treated Thanos like the main subject of the movie. We saw him traveling around the universe to achieve his goals, explored his tragic origins, and watched him grow as he committed more and more to his ideals. You know, the standard hero's journey stuff, except with a Hulk-sized genocidal alien instead of a misfit with humble beginnings. Now that an entire feature-length film has gone into making Thanos the most powerful and established villain in the entire MCU, this next film will be almost entirely dedicated to bringing him down. The remaining Marvel heroes are going to have to rally together, hatch a plan to defeat the now godlike Thanos, and then try to use the Infinity Gauntlet to restore those lost in the snap. Which all sounds like a pretty straightforward bounce back from the biggest all is lost moment in the history of the franchise. Only, things won't go as smoothly as this formula lays out where our heroes discover they aren't able to use the Infinity Gauntlet to revive half the universe. Assuming the Gauntlet even works anymore. We do know for sure that the Infinity Gauntlet and individual Infinity Stones are able to essentially bring the dead back to life. Thanos used the Time Stone to bring Vision back to life by reforming the Mind Stone that Wanda had just shattered. Furthermore, Doctor Strange used the Time Stone to create a loop where he came back to life every time the apocalyptic Dormammu killed him. Similarly, the Reality Stone could have the ability to restore the universe to its previous state if given enough of a boost from the Power Stone. Or perhaps the mysterious powers of the Soul Stone will hold the key to bringing back all of the fallen heroes. Although, since it did take the combined powers of the Infinity Stones to make the snap happen, it would probably take the combined powers of the Gauntlet to bring everyone back, if that's even possible. The Infinity Gauntlet got pretty messed up after Thanos used it to wipe out half of all living things. Thanos wasn't in the best shape after the snap either, but the axe in his chest probably played a role in that too. It's hard to say for sure right now if the Infinity Gauntlet can even perform another feat of that scale, and if any of the remaining heroes have the ability to control that much power. The Infinity Gauntlet was smoldering and barely holding itself together after the snap pushed the power of the Infinity Stones to their near limit. It's entirely possible that the Infinity Gauntlet doesn't have another snap-level event in it, especially considering how much more difficult it is to create something as complex as sentient organisms compared to destroying them. The Infinity Gauntlet from the previous movie might not have the power to revive half of the universe, and even if it did, could any of the surviving heroes even use it? The Infinity Gauntlet fits snugly on Thanos' left hand and wrist, which makes it roughly the size of an average human torso and far too big for most heroes to use. Sure, the Hulk could probably wear the giant golden glove, but it's doubtful that he could stay calm enough to use the gauntlet for anything besides beating up whatever enemy is nearby. Then again, it's hard to imagine how any of the remaining heroes could handle the strain of wearing, much less using the Infinity Gauntlet to restore the universe to its previous state. Thanos claimed in the previous film that only he has the ability to wield the Infinity Gauntlet and command the power of all 6 Infinity Stones. While this merely could have been a display of his arrogance and extremely inflated sense of importance, it's pretty clear that wearing a fully bedazzled Infinity Gauntlet comes with an intense physical and mental strain. We know from previous Marvel films that regular humans and aliens aren't even able to handle the power of most of the Infinity Stones unless they're channeled through some kind of weapon or other apparatus like the Eye of Agamotto. It took every member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, minus Groot, to control the energy of the Power Stone after it fell out of Ronan the Accuser's hammer, and even then, it was only possible because Star-Lord was part god. Even if our current cast of Avengers consist of some of the strongest people in the entire universe, it might be impossible for the heroes who survived the snap to use the gauntlet to bring half of all life in the universe back. Not only does it sound like too great a task for the now battered Infinity Gauntlet, none of the living heroes have the fortitude to pull it off. It really does seem like the Avengers and company will have to find another means to return their universe to its complete state. Thankfully, that method will likely overlap with the surviving hero's best method for defeating Thanos, the Quantum Realm. This plane of existence exists outside of the universe the main characters call home, and is so far only accessible through magical means or by shrinking to a subatomic level. If the Infinity Gauntlet operates by the same rules as its cosmic counterpart, this means that Thanos won't be able to use its powers in the Quantum Realm, as the Infinity Stones can only affect the universe it was created in. This would rob Thanos of his unrivaled powers and leave him all but defenseless. The Quantum Realm will also be the key to returning half of all life back to the universe, as it seems to be the key to interdimensional travel. Multiple universes filled with alternate versions of Earth and classic characters is a pretty well-established idea in Marvel Comics, but has yet to appear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. With Ant-Man and the Wasp ending with the titular Ant-Man stuck in the Quantum Realm, it seems like it and multiple universes will play a critical role in Avengers Endgame. Rather than try to revive those who died in the snap, which might not even be possible, the heroes in the next Avengers film will replace them with people from a similar universe where the other half of humanity was erased instead. Even if it would be a Herculean task, this would essentially make the universe whole again, and allow new movies like Spider-Man: Far From Home to be part of the same universe as the rest of the Marvel movies. Perhaps using the power of each universe's Infinity Gauntlet, or a yet-to-be-explained scientific or cosmic device, the protagonists will manage to combine the two universes and create a new one that is identical to each pre-snap universe. If you think that's a pretty convoluted way for the universe to be restored, and that it would be simpler just to use the Infinity Gauntlet to return things to normal, you're right. It would be a lot easier for a character to just snap their fingers and undo the tragedy at the end of Avengers Infinity War, but that wouldn't make for a good movie, and it certainly wouldn't live up to the caliber of storytelling set by the previous films in the MCU. Infinity War is one of the best films in Marvel's lineup, because no one predicted its ending, or even the general direction of the film. However, that was merely a misdirection set up by the bulk of the advertising, and fans were instead treated to a several hours-long exploration of Thanos' character and one of the biggest tragedies in the history of the franchise. This movie was incredible because it took the well-tested formula of a typical Marvel movie, threw it out the window, and gave fans an incredible experience they didn't even know they wanted. It would be a massive letdown if Avengers Endgame walked back the structural changes that made the previous film so amazing, and instead presented a predictable and cliché superhero movie. Not every movie needs to be a mysterious box of misleading twists and turns with advertising that intentionally misdirects a viewer's expectations, but some of the best movies in history usually do well because they played around with familiar ideas in brand new ways. The next Avengers film doesn't have to be an avant-garde take on the superhero genre, but it can still play around with the revenge or redemption story that the previous film sets up. Can you imagine how boring it would be if the film really was just the surviving heroes meeting up, tracking down Thanos, and then using the Infinity Gauntlet to revive everyone who died in the last movie? It would be such a waste of potential if the movie unfolded exactly as the audience expected. The MCU has never told a single narrative over the course of 2 movies like it is with Infinity War and Endgame. These characters have never been in such a desperate situation or had the odds so heavily stacked against them. For Endgame to be a movie that defines the superhero genre for generations, it needs to commit to subverting expectations, and a great way to do that is to not revive the characters who perished in the previous movie. Not to mention how much of a betrayal it would be if Endgame just undid all of the consequences from the previous movie. People were weeping in the theaters when so many of their favorites died suddenly and presumably painful deaths. To just bring everyone back and pretend the snap never happened would really sting after such emotional agony. It would make all that emotional pain feel like it was unnecessary, because everything is back to normal in the MCU, like all those character deaths didn't even matter. That in itself goes against how Marvel heroes deal with the consequences of their actions and their failures. There is almost always some enduring change in a character that stems from their inability to live up to their own expectations, or those of others. A good example would be the lasting injury Iron Man has in his left arm that denotes how much of a strain his superhero exploits have put on his body.
Multiple contusions detected.
Yeah, I detected that too.
Or how Bucky Barnes' missing left arm is a constant reminder of how much harm he inflicted on innocent people and his loved ones while he was brainwashed.
Oh, I'll get that out.
Furthermore, Thor's missing and artificial eye serves as a reminder of his own weakness and what kind of tragedy he can suffer when he doesn't believe in himself and his community. Marvel movies, and superhero movies more generally, place a heavy amount of emphasis on the tragedies a hero endures over the course of their life and uses an opportunity to explore new sides of the character and new storylines. Marvel movies in particular are great at showing how a character's failures in one movie influence their actions in another, such as how Tony Stark supported the Sokovia Accords in Captain America: Civil War because of the role he played in creating the villain Ultron. The erasure of half of all sentient creatures in the universe is going to weigh heavily on all these characters for the duration of their time in the MCU. There's going to be some sort of explanation for how things get back on track so that future Marvel movies can take place in the same continuity with little issue. Maybe we'll see an alternate version of them, or maybe future films will center on characters in a different universe, but the fallen heroes won't simply come back to life and return things to normal. We don't know for sure if the Infinity Gauntlet is even capable of undoing the snap in its current state, and there are more interesting ways to return half of the universe's population. Most importantly though, to revive everyone and have them carry on as they normally would completely undermine the themes of characters taking responsibility for their actions that's the heart of most Marvel movies. The MCU is never going to be the same after the snap, even if things return to something close to the status quo. The fallen heroes will stay dead, and the survivors will have to live with the fact that the versions of these people they personally knew and loved can never return. It may not make for the perfect happy ending, but it will be far more interesting to see how these characters cope with their failure and loss in following movies than if Endgame just undoes one of the boldest decisions in modern cinema. What do you think though? Will Avengers Endgame have a happier conclusion than this theory allows? Or do you think it will have an even bigger twist than Infinity War? Let us know in the comments down below. While you're down there, be sure to subscribe to Behind the Screen and hit the bell so you're notified when we put out more videos about the biggest and best pieces of media around. Thanks for watching.